Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you for tuning in to Cedar Lee Radio, your guide to films playing at the Art House for the week of February 22nd to 28th. My name is Aaron Spears.
And my name is Sam Allard, standing in for Dave Huffman this week. I'm from Scene Magazine. I'm delighted to report that on this week's episode, we'll be discussing Joe Penna's Arctic and Shawn Snyder's To Dust.
We'll also be discussing Oscar conspiracy theories and the Oscar nominations in general, and who we think will be taking home the trophy on Sunday, as well as our Cedar Lee 3 picks for great feature film debuts. Well, Sam, we'll get to know you in just a moment, but first we always start off the show with the last scene first, so let's let all the listeners just judge you only on the last film you've seen. So what is the last film you've seen?
Well, let me mention two, because I did actually go to the Capitol Theater, another Cleveland Cinemas location on the west side, right by where I live. They played this film called Lords of Chaos, which opened this weekend. Directed by Jonas Åkerlund, who's a black metal alum from Scandinavia. And the whole film basically it's based on a book, a nonfiction book about the Norwegian black metal scene, which is a kind of an insane subgenre of heavy metal music. Yeah. And the film is interesting. It wasn't entirely my speed. It includes, among other things, one of the most violent
Is it the suicide
scenes.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh my dude! I almost fainted. In the movie.
It is so rough.
Oh, it was so bad. I almost walked out just for a minute because I was getting lightheaded. It was so bad.
It really is. Yeah. And I'm not too squeamish with usually horror movies or any of that stuff, but it just kept going, and it was 4 methods used.
It was bad. Yeah. It was really, really rough. The one thing I'll mention though is pretty cool. I think it was the only showtime. It's like a 9:30 Saturday night showtime.
That's when you watch that movie though. It's not an afternoon matinee movie.
No, not at all. But it was a packed theater with a bunch of kind of metalheads, long-haired guys, leather jackets. I was like, this is kind of sweet to see this kind of community
method movie going there.
Right. But it was a wild movie, and I was actually interested in reading the book and kind of went down a Wikipedia wormhole afterwards because the scene was really interesting.
Absolutely.
And actually, I think there was a kernel of a really cool tension in the film between kind of like artistic purity versus selling out.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was great. But some of the I don't know, just kind of the atmospherics of the film, and
it's really bleak.
It's bleak and it's violent.
Yeah,
it just didn't have it was kind of an unpleasant viewing experience.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
From time to time, but cool. There were things about it that I really liked.
Yeah.
And I was just going to mention one other, which is that actually in preparation for this podcast, I watched the 1996 film Pusher.
Oh, yeah.
By Nicolas Winding Refn.
Yeah, absolutely. His debut
It's
movie.
His debut from 96. And it also, I believe, is the debut of Mads Mikkelsen.
It is. I'm a diehard fan of his, so I know he did a short, I think, before, but it was his feature film debut, and it's so ferocious.
It is ferocious, and it's a very kind of naturalistic look at these drug pushers in I think Copenhagen.
Yeah.
And
super low budget guerrilla filming style.
Super low budget, yeah, for sure.
You can feel it though on screen. It's so visceral.
It really is.
Film, yeah.
And I had never seen it before. And I'm a fan of his work, although I kind of was introduced to him when Drive came out and was there was all this hype around Drive, and then I watched some of his earlier stuff. But this is the first, and it's the first in a trilogy, I think.
It is, and they only get, speaking of rough things to watch. The third one, I Am the Angel of Death, has a scene where it's 45 minutes of, it's like the gangster that he owes money to, the older guy.
Same guy?
Same guy, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So it's all within that same world, but then it's 40 minutes of them just physically getting rid of a body. And you just see what it takes, and he doesn't flinch away from anything. You're like, okay, this is the garbage disposal. This goes in a bucket. I mean, it's. I watched it with a buddy of mine, Cinematech, played all three back to back years ago.
Nice.
And we got done with the third one. We're like, I don't know what it means to be a human other than we're a sack of organs.
Right.
It's so rough.
Yeah, but I enjoyed I hadn't seen it before. And
that one had a good cultural resonance too, because there's a British remake of it.
Pusher, really?
Yeah, starring, I think it's Richard Coyle from Coupling.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Stuff. And there's also an Indian remake of it. It's not a Bollywood musical style, because although I would want to watch that, that'd be interesting. But so that it's definitely resonated.
Well, what about you? What's the last thing you saw?
The last movie I watched was JFK, the director's cut, which is almost 4 hours long.
Yeah, it's so long.
It's so long, and it was one of those that I had the evening off. The kids were in bed. I was like, man, I haven't watched that in a while. I don't know what sparked it, and I just started watching it, and I'm completely absorbed every time I watch it. And I just kept lamenting how the force Oliver Stone used to be within filmmaking. So I was kind of playing on my phone and looking him up and reading some Wikipedia while watching it. And I keep forgetting he's got some great documentary work in his more recent history, but I feel like he's ready to just explode back with something any day now.
He's had a few duds.
Yeah. There's definitely. It's not a very solid filmography through and through, but
what year was
JFK? That was early 90s.
Early 90s.
I think, so
okay.
yeah. I think that was my introduction to him too. When I started film school, a buddy of mine that I met there was just a huge Oliver Stone fan. And I think his dad was a Vietnam vet, so I think that kind of introduced him in the house there.
But,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
absolutely. But it was because in my head, like JFK is that conspiracy theory movie, but it's really just like a local district attorney movie. It's it's like a legal kind of movie with all that the stuff's mixed in as they're investigating the case. But forgot it's a solid hour in that director's cut of just the courtroom scene at the end where he goes over everything, from start to finish and lays out his whole case. But it's riveting as courtroom scenes go. Like it really holds up.
I'm a sucker for courtroom dramas, man.
So now that we've got that out of the way, we've judged you by your Lords of Chaos and Pusher watching. Give us a little introduction. You're a reporter at Scene Magazine.
I am the senior writer.
Senior writer,
at
excellent.
Scene Magazine, which just means news reporter and critic of sorts. I write the movie reviews there, and I cover local politics, and I write long-form investigative features and narrative features for the publication. So all sorts of
it. What got you into journalism then in the first place?
Well, I went to journalism school.
That'll get you into it.
I knew I'd want to be a writer back in high school, and actually I wanted to be like a novelist. And a college counselor wisely said, "Well, you can't do that."
Yeah,
so,
pay the bills.
Right.
Novelist in the free time.
Right. So I went to Northwestern for journalism school.
Oh, okay, excellent.
Then came back here for grad school, and after a fellowship, I landed at Scene and have been there for the past 5-6 years.
From Cleveland originally?
Near West Side,
All right,
born and raised.
Nice. Well, the next segment we always do in the show is At the Art House, which is kind of the general buzz on movies.
We're in an art house right now.
We're in an art house right now. And the buzz here is quiet because it's the crack of dawn in the morning. But this weekend, it was all Oscar buzz. It's everybody's catching up on Oscar stuff.
Yeah.
Your review, though, the new movie we just opened was Capernaum, which you reviewed for Scene
last week. Yep.
And the audience here is really responding. There's a pretty decent chunk of Lebanese groups that come out. Like we had The Insult a couple of years ago.
Okay.
There's a lot of community groups coming out, which I love to see because it's, they bring their own crowd with them, and they have people to talk with afterwards, and you get to hear a bit more, I guess, like a local perspective on the movie or on the content as well, where they're like, "Oh no, what really is going on?" And you get all this update.
Well, I imagine as one of the only theaters in town that's consistently showing foreign language films, the crowds should be pretty good, right? I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely. And being again height of Oscar buzz, it's one of the last couple of weekends, everybody's cramming in all their viewings. Being nominated for best foreign film,
of course, and
that definitely gives it a bump.
Yeah. So I was really impressed with the film technically.
Right.
I thought, the first thing to say about it for me is the strength of these two child performances.
Yeah.
The children are amazing. The lead kid is probably 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Yeah, and then this baby who's probably 1 or 2 years old. They're both just magnetic on screen.
Yeah.
They're incredible performers. And I attribute that mostly to the director, Nadine Labaki.
Yeah. Not a lot of raw, natural acting talent when you're 2.
Yeah, you've really got to coax that out of them. And I actually felt the same way about other really stellar child performances. Mm-hmm. You just got to give a lot of credit to the director who's able to work and coax the kid into that performance.
Get the right temperament on set and the right mood and everything.
Right. And also, it did create, so it takes place in Beirut, and it really portrayed the slums of Beirut in more detail. I mean, the poverty in Beirut than pretty much anything I'd ever seen there. Ultimately, though, I did walk away with a film with, I guess, a little bit of misgivings or ambiguity about it, because the ultimate message, I don't want to spoil it, and I won't, but
it's usually the preface to spoiling it.
Well, I won't. I'll just say it left me a little uneasy.
Okay.
The kind of the moral of the story
Gotcha.
Didn't land quite right with me.
Is it one of those that is it ambiguous, or is it pretty straightforward?
To me, it's pretty specific.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
there are clear-cut villains in the story, and to me, I felt like it was misguided. Like the villains of the story were actually victims themselves.
Okay,
and it was almost manipulative. If you want my take, but I'll let viewers decide.
Sure.
But that was the only thing. As like a technical achievement, it was the cinematography was incredible. As a portrayal of this international city that I don't know well.
Right.
It was really eye-opening, and again, the performances were fantastic.
Yeah.
But again, that final 15 or 20 minutes was just like, man, just not sure about this.
Right. Most of the discussion was everybody that came out just had to do their take on, is this going to win whatever award it was they were up for. Like even, we were just talking about yesterday that even Can You Ever Forgive Me, which is a great movie.
Marielle Heller?
It is.
McCarthy?
but it's not nominated for Best Picture, Best Form. Usually the categories that give it something a big bump are the main categories, but that one has Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, and Screenplay, I believe. Screenplay.
Okay, yeah.
And that one's got, I think it's one of those where we're the only place still playing it. It's only one show a day, but like the bump for that was like, we just sold out one of our screening rooms again. Like this. So that was kind of odd to see like where the bumps go this year. Like in past years with Shape of Water or La La Land or Moonlight, there was pretty obvious bumps in like these, huge attendance all of a sudden for 3 billboards or something like that.
I just feel like the nominees are all over the map this year. It's wild.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Yeah.
But usually it makes predicting, for example, very difficult.
Very difficult, yeah.
And usually there's 3 or 4 movies that are represented in a lot of the top categories.
Very much so, yeah.
Like you say, it's just you show up all over the map.
Right. Or even, for example, like The Favorite it's tied for the most nominations with 10, and that doesn't seem to be too much of the conversation anymore.
Which is too bad.
Is really weird.
One of my
great
favorites
movie
of the year.
So in
no pun intended.
Wow, that just went right over my head. Didn't even land the way you said that. So this is our official Oscar prediction show then.
Bum-ba-da-bum.
It's also Independent Spirit Awards this weekend too, just as a quick shout out. So that's Saturday, and then the Oscars are Sunday night. So if you want to stay home, which we don't recommend you do, we recommend you come to the theater and catch up on all those movies you need to see. Those are both this weekend. And so we thought we'd run through at least like the top few categories and do some predictions of what we, think is going to win, but then also if we could just give it to the right person in our own mind. If we were in charge, who should really get that award. But before we jump in, we do have to make the note of all the ups and downs of controversy this year with the Oscars. Started off with, what was it, Popular Film was like a floated idea last year?
Which sounded like a just to give a branch to the Marvel movies, Black Panther or Avengers.
Well, Disney does own ABC, right? And they're broadcasting the Oscars. So
wait a second, you might be onto something.
I got JFK in my head still. It's bouncing around conspiracy theories galore.
Yeah, there was that. There was the whole Kevin Hart controversy as the host.
I forgot all about Kevin Hart. I was thinking the cinematography stuff recently, but yeah.
Oh man,
I'm going to host. I'm not going to host. Now we don't have any host.
There's no host.
Yeah,
which is crazy. Has that ever happened? No host for the Oscars?
There was one other time I remember reading about, but like I was going to go look for some clips.
So what are they going to do? They're just going to have like individual...
Just the voice of God announcer, I guess, and then the presentees
Morgan Freeman,
come out.
Perhaps?
That's the person. Yeah, of course. And then,
isn't he God?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the official voice of God. So the ups and downs we were going to cover a little bit, but it's probably all going to change before this Sunday anyway.
Oh yeah, every 2 hours there's something new.
So my conspiracy theory on this one...
I'd love to hear it.
...is that there's no host. Generally, a host is going on, Ellen, Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel, hyping up the show. It's going to be great this year. And there's no host to do all that. So instead, you just put out a bunch of conflicting press reports, keep everybody talking about the Oscars. What's going on with the Oscars? What's new today? It's that like...
controversy equals buzz.
Right. It keeps going. It keeps the controversy going. Or they're just bungling this and they don't really know what they're doing. But since they're entertainment professionals, I'm going with the conspiracy angle here.
It may have begun as a just bungling it, and then they realized this is the only way to sustain.
Right, to keep the interest going, and like people are going to tune in. What's going to happen? This is going to be such a flaming pile of a show.
Right.
We all have to watch this fall apart live on TV now.
It is kind of the piety of the people coming out saying about like we must present all the awards, all 24 awards. I don't know. I mean, I kind of agree with them. But like
they do the show. I mean,
but they've also relegated all their technical awards to a different ceremony.
Right, so and they've been doing that for years,
for a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just. I don't really have like a hot take on it.
Right.
But it's just kind of funny to watch all these controversies unfold.
Well, let's jump in then and start with foreign film. So
great place to start.
Of the nominees, as we were saying off mic before we recorded, like it's such a strong year for foreign films.
Oh my gosh, yeah, one of the best categories.
We've got previously mentioned Capernaum, Capernaum from Lebanon, Cold War from Poland, Never Look Away from Germany, coming soon, Cedar Lee, Roma from Mexico, and Shoplifters from Japan. What do you think is going to take home the statue for foreign film?
Well, it's such it's a complicated answer because the Roma throws it off because it's also nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
I mean, I think probably Roma or Cold War they're probably the favorites at this point. I don't know. What's your take?
I was going with Roma. Like, I think it should go to Cold War within that category because I liked, again, because it kind of rules out Roma because I'm assuming like Best Picture. I don't know how they're going to be voting though. If you're voting for both categories, it seems like you'd want to be like, well, I voted for that in Best Picture.
Exactly. I'd love to know the internal like voting. Is there a scoring?
The structure to it.
Yeah, and the mechanisms behind like if that does win, is it even allowed to win the other? Or be considered?
It seems like it would be allowed to be because it is nominated for both.
Right,
so.
but wouldn't it be crazy if it won Best Picture but not Best Foreign Language?
Yeah, that's true. Like if it's the Best Picture, it should be, yeah.
Exactly.
Or when they do that split of like it won Best Picture but not Best Director, well, how the hell did it get made? Like,
exactly. But so you think Cold War, that's your favorite of the
I would give it to Cold War of those, but again with that caveat of because I think Roma's going to take the Best Picture one. But of those 5 purely, I think Roma's the best one of those 5.
Well, my 2 favorites of those are Cold War and Shoplifters.
Okay, yeah.
Shoplifters blew me away.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I think it was just an incredible ensemble movie. I mean, really, really fantastic. And Cold War, I actually like both Cold War and Shoplifters better than Roma myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. It is a strong category, so it's not like I hate Shoplifters or anything like that. I mean, they're all very closely together, but Roma's just edges it out a little bit for me.
Fair enough.
Well, let's jump in with the acting categories.
Boom.
Let's do Best Supporting Actress first.
Okay.
Of the lineup this year, we've got Amy Adams for Vice, Maria de Tavira, I'm probably mispronouncing that, for Roma, Regina King, If Beale Street Could Talk, Emma Stone, The Favorite, and Rachel Weisz for The Favorite as well. Do you think it's going to be one of the favorite actresses, or?
I don't know. They might split it. I think Regina King seems to have had the most buzz.
Yeah.
Coming into it. She's also the only woman of color in both actress and supporting actress, so she might take it, and she's phenomenal.
Oh yeah. She really holds that. She seems to be like that kind of center of gravity in Beale Street that really holds the family together, but that film too.
For sure. And as much as I love The Favorite's probably top 2 or 3 movie of the year for me. But between those two, actually Olivia Colman was my favorite performance of the film. So it'd be difficult for me to pick between
the other two,
Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz. Yeah. So I go Regina King all the way.
I'm there too. Yeah, I think I would pick her to win it, but I'd also just give it to her of those 5 actresses as well. Supporting actor. We have got Mahershala Ali for Green Book, Adam Driver, Black Klansman, Sam Elliott in A Star Is Born, Richard E. Grant, one of Dave's favorites of the year, for Can You Ever Forgive Me, and Sam Rockwell for Vice.
I'm with Dave on this, and in fact, for both who I think and who I want to win. I think Richard Grant was fantastic in Can You Ever Forgive Me. He's amazing, and I think he should win the award, and I hope he does.
I feel like it's going for Mahershala Ali.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Green Book, but it is like their performances that kind of work for me. The chemistry they have there is what really kind of jolts it.
That's the only thing. The only thing,
yeah. and he's so good currently on True Detective season 3 right now, and I've loved him before. And it seems like he just has all of the actors in Hollywood just like. He is the it guy right now. I feel like
he's certainly the supporting actor.
Well, that's true. Yeah. not 2 years in a row. Moonlight was not last year, and then so he'd have it. Yeah, 2 of the last 3 years. Then supporting actor. I kind of see him get bumped up to lead next year. Hopefully,
absolutely. Yeah.
If you could give it to anybody, you're saying you'd still be Richard Grant.
Richard Grant. Oh yeah. And the thing about Mahershala Ali is that I think that my impression of the film kind of colored my impression of him. I mean, he was good, but I was just so on Green Book,
Right.
So it's weird for me to elevate that. Both Adam Driver and Sam Elliott, I thought actually were phenomenal as well. Elliott has that one moment in A Star Is Born that's been on all the posters, and he's reversing out of the driveway, tears in his eyes. That's an incredible moment. And Adam Driver was just incredible in Black Klansman, another one of my top 5.
Yeah, I just actually rewatched that and was noticing. I guess kind of noticing him for the first time because that story is so crazy and sort of like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
And that I kind of overlooked his performance a little bit the first time through on that movie. Let's hop over to what do we have? Actress, Best Actress of the Year, Leading Actress. Yalitza Aparicio for Roma, Glenn Close for The Wife, Olivia Colman for The Favorite, Lady Gaga, A Star Is Born, and Melissa McCarthy, Can You Ever Forgive Me?
This is a tough category.
It is. As David and I mentioned on the show, we both would give it to Toni Collette for Hereditary, but she completely overlooked.
Absolutely should have been nominated.
At least should have been nominated, but it just has that
fantastic.
This just has that vibe of it's that make good for Glenn Close and all the overlooked performances over the years.
I think so. And as you know, I think in the past 10 years, the Academy Award for Best Actress has always gone to a winner of the Golden Globe for either comedy or drama,
right?
Which was Glenn Close and Olivia Colman,
right?
So if history is any indication, it would be Glenn Close or Olivia Colman, and
neck and neck.
I'd go for. I mean, I'd pick Close. She wouldn't be my favorite.
Right.
My favorite is probably Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
with Lady Gaga actually coming in a close number 2. But I think
she was remarkably like it was clearly like she's cast as in A Star Is Born. It's like, oh, you got the chops for this, but there's also a level of acting there that I was not expecting from her.
Oh yeah, totally blew me away. And it's possible one of the reasons I was so impressed is because just my expectations to what actually happened were so extreme.
Right.
I mean, what I told everyone afterwards is I think Lady Gaga is a better actor than Bradley Cooper is a singer.
Well, that's true, yeah. But he was doing a really good kind of Eddie Vedder, Tom Petty impression.
Oh, yeah.
But
he was doing an impression.
It was
an
impression.
Doing a voice.
Yeah, exactly. It was.
This whole thing was a voice.
And then anytime he was speaking, I was like, you're doing like a Sam Elliott bit here. And then he pops up. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess this you kind of wrote it in to make sense in the long run, I guess. But all right. So we've got actor now, Christian Bale, Vice. Bradley Cooper, Star Is Born, Willem Dafoe at Eternity's Gate, Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Viggo Mortensen, Green Book.
What a bad category.
Yeah, it's
oh my gosh.
It's an interesting one this year that was
I mean, they're probably just going to give it to Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody, right? He's the guy.
Were you a Bohemian Rhapsody fan?
Well, yes, but not as an Academy Award contender. I mean, I thought it was kind of fun. It was kind of like a glossy. Yeah. You know, it was like a fun. Like the songs were fun. The Live Aid performance was fun. He was great. Rami Malek was great. But like, it's not a Best Picture contender, and it's blowing me away that
the amount of. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's got enough. We can talk about this soon, but like it's got a lot of momentum right now.
It does. Yeah. It's really, really strange.
It's freaking me out. But yeah, I think Rami's going to run away with it.
I think, it seemed Christian Bale early on, but yeah, it seems like he's got all the goodwill.
People have soured on Vice.
They really have, yeah.
I'm kind of glad that they have. I was not a huge fan.
I'm not a big fan either. I would say it's worth seeing because like it's an interesting kind of different trajectory for Adam McKay's career, and Amy Adams is fantastic in it. I don't think necessarily needs to be awarded, but
I actually think and I think Rockwell's
Bale really good too.
Were both of them in terms of just simulating those guys.
I'll say another thing of impressions though. Like David, I mentioned on the show where like there's that thing with like you're doing a good impression of that, and that's good, and it works for the movie. But like
they love
really
that,
do,
though.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the whole like weight gain story that Christian Bale loves to do, but I feel like he's already played that card before, so probably won't get rewarded this time.
Yeah, I think they're giving it to Rami. Although shoot, if I had to pick, I wouldn't pick any one of these guys.
I'd go with Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke, that's exactly what I was going to say. Ethan Hawke, there's no excuse that he's not on this list.
No, not whatsoever at all.
And I should say, for the record, I have not seen At Eternity's Gate, the Willem Dafoe, and I hear he's phenomenal.
It's good. It's like a experimental art film, though. It's not, and yeah, he's like the center of gravity that holds that whole thing together. And he's great. It's really good. But he makes some very bold choices, in my opinion, in that movie that don't always work out. But he's swinging for the fences, and
he goes for broke.
It's Defoe. Like I want to see him shoot some scenery sometimes, but then other times you're like you're going a bit much there. All right, director. We've got Spike Lee, Black Klansman, Pavel Pawlikowski, Cold War, Yorgos Lanthimos, The Favorite, Alfonso Cuarón, Roma, and Adam McKay for Vice. As much as I would love to see Spike Lee get an Academy Award, I'm not feeling it for him this year for directing. I think it's going to be the screenplay one for him.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm not feeling it for directing. It feels like Cuarón's got this one wrapped up.
I feel the same way. He's got the buzz here for that one.
If you could pick any of them, though, would it still be Cuarón?
No, I go Yorgos.
Yorgos, yeah, I can see that.
And because to me, there was no other director who could have done that movie with that script. That to me was such a cool collision of a director's sensibility and a script that to me didn't seem like it would work with it.
No.
And the result was, to me, amazing.
It was kind of exactly what I wanted too after going through. I'm a fan of his movies, but after seeing his other two English language films, The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer, I was really curious to see, like, I want him to work with something he didn't write. And that's what we got with The Favorite. It's like, oh my God, you need to... I like his writing style when it's the right topic, I guess. But
yeah, I actually really like both of his previous English language films, but this was, to me, his best.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, just a ravishing, wonderful movie. Although Spike Lee would be probably my second choice. I love Black Klansman as well. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily the best movie he's directed, but it's... he's just such a prolific director, one of my favorites that still works. Yeah, it's almost like a career award.
Yeah. Sure. The way I wasn't happy that Scorsese won for The Departed, but I'm glad he won.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a
he's done so
analogy.
much in general. So
honestly, any of these directing or other than Adam McKay, I wouldn't be upset with.
Right. Yeah.
Although Cuarón just won. You know, didn't he win 2? He won for Gravity and The Revenant.
Iñárritu for The Revenant.
Oh, that was Iñárritu. Oh, my bad. Yeah. But he won for Gravity.
Well, it's that whole like Mexican domination of the Best Picture, Best Directors over the last few years. But yeah, he won for Gravity. But Iñárritu won back to back because he did Revenant and Birdman.
That's right.
So that was back to back.
Jeez,
Picture. So We'll see. And wrapping it up, we have Best Picture. This is probably going to take a minute. Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star is Born, and Vice. So what do you think is going to win?
Well, as I said before, as crazy as it sounds, I kind of think Bohemian Rhapsody has this has this momentum.
It's kind of building to a boil here, and it might hit for the weekend.
It's so weird to say that. It doesn't seem possible, but it seems like that could do it.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at this list, and it kind of was made fun of. Like, why is this even on the list?
Right. Yeah, it's like one of the lowest, aggregate, like Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic is one of the lowest reviewed of the ones that are nominated. But it's like beloved. People that love that movie have seen it like 3-4 times in the theater. I agree with you that it's weird how it's kind of shifting around. That I like that there's no clear frontrunner. I feel like Roma was a clear frontrunner. It kind of still is probably a clear frontrunner for it.
Although no foreign language film has ever won Best Picture.
Yeah, which Dave keeps giving me crap on the show because like The Artist was technically a French film, but it was silent, so there's no foreign language spoken in it. But I don't. Yeah, no foreign language film has ever done it. But I mean, the critics have its back. A lot of the technical awards have his back.
I also wonder what
previous award winner himself.
Yeah, do you think the Netflix thing helps or hurts its chances?
I don't know if it matters now, to be honest. Because, I mean, it did do a theatrical release. We're still showing it here. I mean, technically it started in theaters in, like, the end of November. So, like, it's clearly finding an audience, or Netflix is just, keeping it in. You can't really, like, force a movie to stay in theaters when there's no one showing up, because theaters are going to want the space to show stuff. So, like, there are still people coming out. And, I mean, it's such a weird one, too, because it's a big screen movie. It needs like the great sound system,
and it's so much better on the big screen. And it's so much
better, but at the same time, I don't know.
I honestly felt like if I had started and watched that movie at home, I might not have finished it. On a first pass.
Yeah.
Like it's so good on the big screen, but I still think it was a little overhyped, and I still think it might be.
Yeah.
I mean, people think they're supposed to be obsessed with this movie, and people are
absolutely.
raving about Rome. I'm like, I mean, there are things about it that are great, but people who I wouldn't expect to be into a movie like Roma.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you into Roma for?
That 1970s black and white Mexican film?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
But my favorite movie of the year isn't on any of these lists, but it was The Rider from.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. Chloe Zhao. It's all not non-professional actors.
Absolutely,
playing themselves essentially.
The best cinematography of the year as well.
Just incredible.
Pacing is great.
Pacing is great, and to me, what was so interesting is how it kind of mapped this new cinematic territory, in my view, between documentary and narrative filmmaking. It was something like I had never seen.
Yeah.
It was really, really an incredible movie.
That's an interesting one too, because we mentioned Independent Spirit Awards are also this coming weekend. That one was up last year, I think, because of the way festivals and release schedules
The Rider
work
was really
for Independent Spirit Awards.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty sure I remember, because I remember reading about it, going like, when the hell are we going to get that? And then we got it like 8 months later.
It was May or June this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So like this time last year, it was up for a few the Independent Awards, which it should be, and deservedly so.
Yeah, that's great. Well, of the nominated categories, my favorite is The Favorite.
There you go. Again, you're really dusting off that pun.
Yeah, although that's not going to win.
No, I don't think so. It had a lot of buzz going into the award season, but it seems like it's kind of fallen off. And anything I read now is just Roma versus Green Book, which there's a pretty clear winner in my book in that pairing.
In your book? Is your book green?
No, it's not. It's not. It's black and white and it's Mexican. So we'll be right back with the new films opening this week here at the theater. The first special event to tell you about this week is the National Theater second showing of the new play written by David Hare, I'm Not Running, Sunday, February 24th at 11 a.m. This is one of those alerts to political junkies, as Cyan Brooke, actress from BBC's Sherlock and last seen on screen at the theater here in the National Theater production of Hamlet, also co-starring Benedict Cumberbatch, oddly enough.
Benny Batch.
She is a junior doctor who ends up in the campaign to save her local hospital, being elected as an independent MP in the House of Parliament, and she is encouraged by her ex-boyfriends to run as a leader in her party. So the ins and outs of the British political system. Sunday, February 24th at 11 a.m. We have 2 new movies opening this week at the theater. The first one is Arctic from director Joe Penna. This is about a man, not just a man, Mads Mikkelsen, stranded in the Arctic after an airplane crash, and he must decide whether to remain in relative safety of his makeshift camp or to embark on a deadly trek through the unknown, trying to find safety.
Yeah, can you squeeze like this? Squeeze. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Don't worry. They'll be here tomorrow. Or the day after tomorrow. Don't worry. She's running out of time. I have to find help.
So, Sam, you have seen this one ahead of time. So does it live up to the hype on the poster? There's a critical quote of like one of the greatest survival movies of all time.
I will say that it is a survival movie of all time.
Okay.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I will say for people who are fans of the genre,
yeah,
it's probably a lot like stuff they've seen before.
Okay.
They're just familiar beats, especially in like Arctic or snowy survival.
For sure, yeah. Man versus nature.
Man versus nature. You just know what to expect, and so you're going to see a lot of that. He as you say, he was in a downed plane.
Yeah.
So he's like harvesting supplies from his plane. Or early in the film, there's a helicopter crash, and the passenger is severely injured, and that's why he needs to decide: do I need to kind of because there's no medical supplies? Do I need to trek across the Arctic to a seasonal outpost?
Okay.
Basically to save her her life. But as you say, there's virtually no dialogue in the film. It's entirely the Arctic tundra and him trying to survive it. But it's very, very well done. And Mikkelsen is just a force on screen. He's even without talking.
Yeah.
He's got such an intensity to his presence. I mean, he's really exciting to watch.
This I was trying to think like survival films. It is like a genre that I just really hadn't thought of as like, oh yeah, that is a genre. It's a pretty active genre recently too. We had the Robert Redford one where he was All Is Lost, where he was out at sea.
That's J.C. Chandor and one of my favorite films of 2013. Really impressive.
So
a tour de force from Redford. Yeah.
And then as we just mentioned earlier, The Revenant is his own kind of like, again, stuck out in the wilderness.
Very similar,
movie.
just because of the landscape.
Right,
and
absolutely.
actually, this is slightly different because it was a love story, but last year's The Mountain Between Us.
Oh, yeah.
Kate Winslet and
Idris Elba,
Yeah, and at least they were, it was a man, like this one was a man and a woman, but they were talking to each other.
Right, yeah.
And happened to be falling in love as they were crossing the Utah.
Yeah, that was a subplot I didn't necessarily need in my survival movie, I have to say. Is the romantic subplot in there?
I like that more than a lot of people did.
It's not bad, because I like both actors enough. Like, if it was the other 2 actors, I would have been like, I don't know about this, but like they sold it. But like you would, I get that you would have those feelings in that situation, but it's just like, like the whole like, human versus nature, fight for survival.
Enough. Well, interestingly enough, this one, I mean, there's no real character origins in Arctic. It is totally unconcerned with anything about these characters. All it is, and actually All Is Lost did this as well, you're so invested in the urgency of
the moment.
The moment of just survival. So very small tasks take on huge significance.
Right.
I need to get this stake in the ground to set up the tent. That becomes a life or death climax,
Which is one of those, like, how you deal with adversity too says a lot about the character in general. So
they pretty much hit the ground running. Yeah. But I think Mikkelsen said this was the hardest shoot he'd ever done.
It was let's say 19 days in Iceland, which, I mean, there's like downtown Reykjavik or something that would be very different. But no, they're out in like the Arctic wasteland of Iceland shooting. So.
But it's a cool movie, and it looks. I mean, you're seeing landscapes that you just don't see regularly.
Oh, absolutely. And it's also a bit of a method movie going if you want, because we're in the middle of winter now, so another polar vortex hits. You can kind of head out and see Arctic in the theater,
just like Cleveland.
We were joking that we should turn on the air conditioning while we're showing Arctic, so like you actually are like all bundled up in the theater and like
a simulated
freezing.
Snow.
Yeah, sprinkle some snow in there. The other film we're opening this week is To Dust, directed by Shawn Snyder, another directorial debut, as we should have mentioned, for Joe Penna, his first feature film. He's done a bunch of short films and music videos, but the first feature film here, To Dust, is the same, in which you have 2 characters, Gaza Rohrig and Matthew Broderick. Gaza is a Hasidic cantor in upstate New York. He's distraught by the untimely death of his wife. He's struggling with finding religious solace in losing your life partner, and he's also secretly obsessing over how her body will decay, which is how he comes into contact with Matthew Broderick's community college biology professor, and they embark on a, as IMDb put it, a darkly comic and increasingly literal undertaking into the underworld.
Can I help you?
You are a scientist?
I'm a science teacher.
I have questions.
I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to be of service to you, Rabbi.
I'm not a rabbi. My wife, she died. I fear her soul is suffering until she returns to the earth. What's to become of her body?
They use pigs. They most closely resemble people. The body is reduced to tiny bits of skin and bone.
And how long does this take?
I suppose one could bury a pig. I don't imagine that that's kosher.
Again, a first-time director, and this one, the preview plays as a comedy.
It does, yeah.
And it goes over pretty well with the audiences here I've seen it with. But you could just tell, like, it's one of those things where in the art house world, this is a comedy. Mm-hmm. As opposed to like Capernaums and others and Cold Wars of the art house world.
Yeah, this one I think has the markings of a debut filmmaker finding his voice, finding his footing.
Okay,
I think it's a little bumpy just from a technical perspective.
Right.
But these are two great actors working with a script that's maybe not entirely polished.
Okay.
But I should say I watched about the first half of the film.
Okay.
It's a screener from the studio. And was enjoying parts of it. I think both actually I can't say his name. Geza Rohrig. He was the lead guy in Son of Saul, which won Best Foreign Language Film.
Oh, yes.
Which was an amazing,
absolutely,
truly powerful film.
Not a comedy.
Not at all a comedy. I mean, just about the polar opposite.
Yeah.
Just diametrically opposed to this film in many ways. But yeah, so far I still have kind of like I'll wait to finish the film before I pass judgment on it.
Right. There's a certain note which we'll get into in a minute, probably with our Cedar 3 picks of debut features, where like debut features aren't necessarily always their best, but like you can see there's a kernel there where like, I'm keeping an eye on this guy or woman, and
sometimes
see what they're doing.
Sometimes it is their best,
and sometimes it is. Yeah, absolutely. This one has been working pretty well with audiences, though. It premiered at Tribeca Film Festival this past year, 2018, and won the Audience Award for Best Narrative Feature.
Yeah,
so it's kind of some of those festival awards are indicators of like, no, the audience actually goes for this.
And it's actually kind of so. Shawn Snyder, I guess, wrote at least part of the film as he was an undergraduate in studying religion, I think, at Harvard, and it's nice to see a film kind of engage directly with religion and spirituality.
Right.
It seems kind of taboo a lot, but it's, people think about it.
Absolutely. And not in that kind of Kirk Cameron religious movie kind of way. Like a more adult, like let's think about these weighty themes of spirituality and religion and faith and what that means.
The
especially once it's
Kevin
shaken.
Sorbo style.
Snyder also, as a first-time feature film director, his credits include writing, producing, editing, sound mixer, production designer, cinematographer. Like this
he's
guy's
all over the credits.
This is in his blood now. Like he's sticking around. He's somebody to keep an eye on. If this isn't necessarily like a stellar debut, like he's somebody that's going to be around for a while, making movies. So someone.
And once again, like any of these debut filmmakers who can land A-listers or B-listers out of the gate is pretty impressive. Like I don't know what personal connections you have, but it's like, wow, it's a great cast.
Or sometimes you just get the right script to the right hands, and they're like, no, this is really strong writing. I feel the voice here, and you can't help but notice when you're watching the trailer, read the synopsis here. It has that Matthew Broderick, like odd couple kind of pairing of
Broderick
of
is really funny.
Yeah.
Broderick is naturally just very funny. As this goofy biology community college professor. He's great.
Which is weird when he starts off as like the slick Ferris Bueller guy, but you're like,
hey, dude, you're a dweeb.
He actually ends up, going into dweeb territory. It's really kind of fascinating. We'll be right back with our Cedar 3 picks after we tell you about a classic film screening coming up this week.
And this week, we also have a special presentation in honor of its 80th anniversary of Gone with the Wind. That's going to be on Thursday, February 28th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And of course, Gone with the Wind is one of the most important timeless classics. It is the first film to ever have an African-American to be nominated for and to win an Academy Award, which is, of course, for Hattie McDaniel's performance. And it was the first color film to win an Oscar. It won 10 Oscars completely. And if you adjust its box office to today's dollars, it's actually by far the most profitable or the biggest hit of all time, and would be the equivalent of making $3.8 billion at the box office at the time, which is kind of unfathomable.
And probably will never be matched again because it's
outrageous.
That seems outrageous, yeah. There's a Time magazine article from 1939 when the film had its Atlanta premiere that the mayor urged every Atlanta woman and maid to put on hoop skirts and pantalettes and appealed to every Atlanta male to don tight trousers and a beaver, sport a goatee, sideburns, and Kentucky Colonel whiskers. And they also had a special request that the audience should not, quote, tear off the clothes of the visiting movie stars, which...
Well, that's only civil.
It's also one of those must be seen on the big screen kind of movies, too.
100%
Like, it just
true.
doesn't work on your TV at home. It is a big screen film. So each week we take inspiration from one of our new films and suggest 3 films to broaden your cinematic world. And since this week we had 2 films that were the feature film debuts from their directors, we decided to take a look at some of the impressive feature film debuts that have occurred throughout film history, which is an admittedly huge topic.
Huge topic.
And there was a lot there. So right off the bat, I want to say, like, we weren't going for like the Citizen Kane's, The Night of the Hunter, The 400 Blows, Breathless, Panther Panchali. I even debated like Eraserhead because it's a bit more modern and stuff. But I was like you said, I did pick one classic that I think tied thematically in with the other ones that I picked. I kind of went a bit more recent.
I did the same. In fact, I mean, there were just so many out there that I wanted to pay homage to, but I actually confined myself just to the past decade.
Okay.
Just because there's, it's much more meticulous, my ranking, so I can pick them easier.
And it's also one of those, the way I looked at it too was even if they didn't do, like, let's say Michael Bay's directorial debut was strong and then he became Michael Bay, I wasn't going to dismiss the first movie just because it didn't go in a great direction the rest of their career as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's just the debut feature. Let's see what you're stunned with. So you want to start off? What is your what's your first one?
The first one I have, most folks will recognize this film. It is District 9.
Ooh, yes.
Directed by Neil Blomkamp. Came out in 2009, which the film is, it's a gritty sci-fi, a bit of its kind of found footage style.
Yeah, that's true.
Shaky cam style. It becomes basically an allegory for apartheid South Africa.
Yeah.
It takes place in South Africa, and it's about these, an alien quarantine district of the city, and a kind of a government worker played by Sharlto Copley, who basically becomes an alien.
Yeah.
And it's just this incredible visionary film from a guy who has gone on to do some really cool stuff too.
Yeah.
I think well, we don't need to go on.
But still.
Both Elysium and
What
Chappie
struck you about District 9, though? Was it one of those... I think part of the debut wow factor is there's no expectations. You don't know what you're going to get into
and I also,
necessarily.
just as a genre, I think sci-fi is one of the most evocative for kind of reflecting back on the real world.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And that, as a story about South Africa, to me, was really... And from a South African director.
Right.
Was really, really neat. Mm-hmm. And just, fairly low budget, but he did cool stuff with practical effects. With the aliens, that was, I thought, awesome.
Yeah.
And Copley was just an incredible performance.
Because it has like that everyman quality too, where you're just like, that's how I would react with most of these situations too, because it's so real. I'm going to start off with my slightly older one because it kind of tied in thematically here, and because it ended up being a lot of American independent and low budget stuff. Because again, it's that idea of like, well, like you're saying with District 9, you don't have a huge budget. If somebody gave him $50 million to just do a bunch of computer effects, I don't think you'd have the same movie in the long run there. So a person who has never went near a computer to do visual effects is John Cassavetes.
Oh my gosh,
Shadows from 1958, which is about kind of race relations in the beat jazz scene in New York City in the 58. So like, you had me right there with the jazz scene and everything else.
I have to say, I've never seen it.
It's really worth seeing. It's great. I just wanted to mention a couple movies that came out. Like, this is the year we're talking about, 1958, or this era was like 10 Commandments, Around the World in 80 Days, Ben-Hur, Some Like It Hot. Like, he was doing something completely different. And Jonas, the critic, even wrote like a whole like manifesto about like, this is a call to a new generation of filmmakers. And it was also that first big break when like equipment was portable. You can go out in the streets and shoot. It didn't have to be on a backlot or in a studio. It was and ushered in this whole idea of independent film, which I'll mention in my next couple of movies.
That's great.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 that I have is Fruitvale Station, directed by Ryan Coogler from 2013.
Almost made my list.
Did it?
Yeah.
So this is actually an interesting talking point. So first of all, the film is incredible. It stars Michael B. Jordan as Oscar Grant, and it's kind of the final day before his...
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's okay to talk about the ending of this movie.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
and it's a known news story.
Yeah.
He's killed at BART station, the rapid transit stop, at the end of the day. And it's sort of like, here's the final day of his life.
Right.
Totally humanizes this guy. And it's a tragic film, filmed beautifully.
Yeah.
And and both it kind of marked the arrival of Ryan Coogler as this young black
100%.
voice on the scene.
Yeah.
And is one of this new wave of just really cool, powerful black filmmakers right now, and it's just an incredible movie. And what's interesting to me about it is that immediately after that, it was super popular. He went on and directed Creed,
right,
and now he did Black Panther and is doing Black Panther 2, and has become this famous, doing big budget movies. And it's interesting how there are a lot of young artsy directors going that route.
Yes,
kind of go from like your kind of art house darling Sundance
hit
to a slightly like on a mid-budget $50-$60 million movie, and then all of a sudden you're getting
in the Marvel
Avengers
universe or something. Yeah,
and it's weird. I don't know if that's the new trajectory or what, but
it kind of bothers me on a because like my heart's in the art house and international movie world. And you have like Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck doing Captain Marvel, and I was like, I wanted more like Half Nelson and like
I want Coogler to be making movies like
I do, yeah. I mean, I still
Fruitvale Station again. Like
all of his movies so far. I don't think Fruitvale Station is still my favorite because it's also like that. It's like that first album of a band you fall in love with, where like whatever got you into that band is the one you're sticking with as your favorite, and Fruitvale's still my favorite of his. But
it's so good.
Actually, I'll just do mine in chronological order then, because the next one was from 1999, the Blair Witch Project.
Oh wow, good one. Good one.
Directorial debut again. Didn't really materialize into like a great, filmic career overall, but like as a bit of like kind of guerrilla filmmaking and stunt filmmaking, like that thing hit. I mean, that's just cultural phenomenon, right?
Cultural phenomenon for sure.
Made for like $60,000. They shot in like 8 days in the woods. Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez just messing with 3 teenage actors with walkie-talkies and sound effects in the woods and scaring the crap out of them. And the fact that they put together that movie out of what the environment was to make that movie constantly blows me away. 2 Halloweens ago, I showed it to my son, who was, I want to say 9 at the time, 10 at the time.
Well,
and he kept saying, he's like, not kidding, for like an hour, he's just like, I'm so bored. We're like, it's building, relax. So, just kept getting more and more popcorn. And then by the end, he was just like, just like a blubbering mess.
I think I was probably in middle school when it came out. And it was like a thing to go see that.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was...
Because there's also pre-internet, I should say, pre-modern internet, where
is this real?
Yeah,
Is this
The marketing campaign was just like, we could put out some rumors and no one can dispel them because there's no real internet to communicate about. There was a behind-the-scenes special called like The Curse of the Blair Witch on Sci-Fi or something, and they played it up like, no one's ever seen these kids again, and they're like, oh shit, like I think Heather Donahue's mom was getting like condolence cards from like distant family members, thinking like, "Oh my God, she lost her." I'm like, "No, she's here. Like it's a movie." But yeah, that thing was lightning in a bottle. I don't think that's going to happen again. I mean, they kind of tried a little bit with like Paranormal Activity years later, but the way the internet is now, like everybody knows what's fake and what isn't. Well, everybody knows movie-wise what's fake and what isn't right away. So Blair Witch Project. If you haven't seen it, give it a shot. I think at this point though, you need to watch the special features on the Blu-ray to get an idea what it culturally was at the time, rather than just watching it now. But I think it still works.
I haven't seen the special features, but yeah. In fact, I probably haven't seen that movie in 10 or 15 years. But
it's still
it's an indelible.
It still lives on. Yeah.
Well, my final and also most recent. Just my favorite movie from 2017, and I don't know, maybe it's
very
too
recent. Okay,
yeah, it's too obvious to bring up, but it's just so good. Lady Bird by Greta Gerwig.
Oh yeah,
which was I just thought a phenomenal movie. Pretty much every beat of that movie I thought was a success. Loved the tone, loved the look. As a story of a coming of age story in Sacramento, it was almost a perfect movie. I just loved it.
Here's a question, because I was thinking about this, talking about debuts, and Greta Gerwig is the perfect example of this. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have like Blair Witch, for example, like those guys, came right out of, I think it was film school. I don't remember if they graduated or not, but like that went out and made their movie. But she'd been working
in the industry
for decades, or at least a couple decades, I think, acting. She was part of the Mumblecore group. She worked with like Whit Stillman before. Like she's got a great acting career, stellar acting career going into that. So there's a great base of knowledge there.
You're absolutely right.
That I think really helps. I'm not handicapping her directorial debut at all. It's still spectacular. I love it.
It's much more polished than what you think.
It's more assured than what I think you get.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the fact that she came out of the gate with
100%. Yeah.
Like, holy smokes, she's going to do some incredible.
Yeah, no shade on it at all. I just like there's just different context for like how those debuts come about.
I totally agree.
That are kind of interesting to see that there. My last one is I guess a different example of that kind of passion project. It'd be Primer from 2004.
Oh my God, you're picking great ones.
Oh man, I deliberated. I've got more notes at home. Like it was one of those like laborious thing here that. Yeah. But that one was a complete passion project of Shane Carruth, the writer, director, star, producer, composer, editor, casting director, production designer, and sound mixer on the movie for $7,000. And it's still my favorite time travel movie of all time. And
I think I probably watched that movie back to back when I first saw it.
Oh, it's one of those
just like what happened?
Because it's a puzzle that I did not understand the first time through, but I was like, I think all the clues are there. It was like a great David Lynch movie. Like Mulholland Drive, when I'm watching it, makes sense to me, but I can't really explain why. As soon as it's done, it's lost. I can't get it anymore. But this one, my favorite anecdote is he ended up becoming friends with Rian Johnson.
Oh my gosh! Well, Brick next year, another.
Yeah, a Brick was on my list too.
Yeah, my list too. And close cut.
He sent Shane Carruth the script for Looper, and then he got back all these notes on why all of his time travel was wrong, which I thought was like, that is awesome. But it's also one of those directors too. He's only done 2 movies as a director, writer, director, et cetera. Primer and Upstream Color, which was like years later.
Right.
But he's like known all around the industry. He's worked like David Lowery. He did some editing work on like A Ghost Story and I think Ain't Them Bodies Saints. So like he's still around, but like I guess I don't know if he just is waiting for like the right story to keep making movies. So like, you know, starting in 2004, and he also spent like a couple years working on Primer, and like his parents were caterers on the set. Like it's a total like low budget passion project that shouldn't be as good as it is.
Yeah,
and it's just, you know, commitment to a vision, and you know, that worked out for him.
Yeah, Brick was so close, man.
Yeah, we could do another 20 minutes, and like I got like sheets of lists here. So before we sign off, thank you so much for stepping into Dave's shoes and co-hosting this week.
Oh, it's
much
my pleasure.
Appreciated.
My pleasure.
And you want to direct anybody to find your writings online?
Well, both, yeah, absolutely. Clevescene.com is where you can find all of it. I'm, you know, one of 2 or 3 people writing regularly there, but both my reviews of Capernaum and Arctic should be both on Clevescene.com by the time this comes out.
Twitter?
Scene Salad.
Scene Salad
on Twitter.
All right.
Yep.
And on next week's episode, we'll be discussing Neil Jordan's Greta and Florian Henkel von Donnerschmark's Oscar-nominated Never Look Away, as well as checking back at the Independent Spirit Awards and the Oscar winners. Since those award shows are done, and that puts a cap on the year of 2018, next week's Cedarly 3 theme will be films we're looking forward to in 2019. Submit your picks or suggestions, movies we should be keeping our eye on at Cedarly Theater using the hashtag Cedarly3, the number 3. As always, thank you for tuning in to Cedarly Radio and lending us your ears this week. All the music heard on the show is original music written by Grant Heineman and performed by the New Heights Jazz Ensemble, used with their permission, of course. Visit clevelandcinemas.com for correct showtimes and to purchase advance tickets. Also, there are links in the show notes. You can use those if you'd like as well. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Cedarly Theater, spelled with an R-E at the end because we're fancy like that. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, and while you're subscribing, leave us a rating and review, or better yet, tell a fellow film geek about the show. We'll see you at the movies.